From a bubble-topped marvel that looks like it's straight out of a sci-fi flick to a land shark with a fin, and a dual-cockpit speedster that's more spaceship than car, these are the three most weird and strange cars you won't believe exist.
The 1956 Buick Centurion is a fascinating piece of automotive history that leaves you wondering what the designers were thinking. This concept car was Buick's attempt to envision the future, and they certainly got creative with it. Let's explore the bizarre backstory, the peculiar details, and why it deserves a place on the list of the weirdest and strangest cars ever made. Back in the 1950s, the future seemed limitless, and innovation was the driving force behind the automotive industry. General Motors' Motorama, where the Centurion made its debut, was not just an auto show, but a celebration of technological optimism. The event showcased the wildest dreams of automotive engineers and designers, pushing the boundaries of what cars could be. The Centurion, named after a Roman officer, was meant to command attention and respect, symbolizing power and authority. Buick, inspired by the era's obsession with aviation and space travel, incorporated these themes into their concept car. The jet age design wasn't just for show, it was a declaration of intent. The Centurion's development reflected Buick's determination to stay ahead of the curve and set trends rather than follow them. The engineers and designers were given the freedom to let their imaginations run wild, resulting in a vehicle that was as much a work of art as it was a means of transportation. Now, let's talk about the wackiness under the hood and everywhere else. The Centurion's fiberglass body was a bold choice, representing a departure from traditional materials and techniques. This material allowed designers to create more fluid and unconventional shapes, contributing to the car's sleek, futuristic appearance. The red and white paint job was a purposeful decision to make the car stand out, reflecting the vibrant and optimistic spirit of the 1950s. The bubble top was perhaps the most eye-catching feature. This all-glass canopy provided panoramic views, an idea that sounds amazing until you consider the practicalities. Imagine driving under the scorching summer sun with no escape, a challenge even modern air conditioning would have a hard time with. Plus, the thought of a completely transparent roof raises concerns about privacy and security. But who needs practicality when you can have an unobstructed view of the sky while cruising down the road? The Centurion's jet fighter aesthetics were inspired by the era's fascination with jet aircraft. The tail cone and fins weren't just decorative, they were part of this high-tech theme. The rear-mounted television camera, a forerunner to today's common rearview cameras, was another nod to the car's futuristic aspirations. However, the technology was primitive by today's standards, likely providing a grainy and unreliable image. This feature was less about practicality and more about showcasing what was theoretically possible. Inside, the Centurion continued its trend of forward-thinking design. The bucket seats, a novelty in the mid-1950s, offered a glimpse into the future of automotive comfort and ergonomics. Headrests, now standard in all cars, were an innovation at the time, designed to enhance passenger comfort and safety. The dashboard layout, with its aircraft-inspired gauges and controls, was intended to make drivers feel like pilots, navigating the open road, emphasizing the car's futuristic aspirations. So why is the Centurion considered one of the weirdest and strangest cars ever made? Well, it was essentially an innovation overload. Buick used the Centurion as a playground for experimentation, packing it with features that seemed straight out of a science fiction novel. From the rearview camera to the bubble top, every element of this car screamed future. However, this was the 1950s, and much of this technology was in its early stages, often more conceptual than practical. The abundance of innovation made the Centurion a marvel of its time, but also highlighted the gap between vision and reality. The design choices were bold, to say the least. The combination of a clear bubble top, tailfins, and a tail cone might have seemed cohesive on paper, but in reality it was a mishmash of futuristic cliches. The Centurion's aesthetics were polarizing, dividing opinions among car enthusiasts and the general public alike. While the Centurion showcased what could be, it also served as a reminder of what shouldn't be. The bubble top, for example, would have been a nightmare for climate control and safety. Imagine trying to maintain a comfortable temperature or ensure structural integrity in an accident. The rearview camera, though innovative, was likely more of a gimmick than a reliable tool. The fiberglass body, while cutting edge, raised questions about durability and repairability. It was a car built to impress at shows, not to withstand the demands of everyday driving.
The Tatra T77. Imagine a time when cars were basically just fancy boxes on wheels. It was the 1930s, and most vehicles were about as aerodynamic as a brick. But then along came Hans Ledwinka and Paul Jaray, two guys who decided to shake things up. Ledwinka was Tatra's head honcho when it came to design, and Jaray used to work on Zeppelins, so you know they were thinking outside the box. These two teamed up to create the Tatra T77, a car that looked like it was straight out of a science fiction movie. When they were working on it, they kept everything super hush-hush. It was like they were building a top-secret spacecraft or something. Finally, in 1934, they unveiled their creation at the Prague Auto Salon, and people were probably wondering if it was going to take off and fly away. The T77 then made its way to the Paris Motor Show, where it continued to make people scratch their heads in amazement. It even caught the eye of Maurice Elvey, a movie director who loved weird stuff. He put the T77 in his sci-fi flick The Transatlantic Tunnel, which pretty much solidified its status as the car of the future. Or maybe the car from another dimension. So, what made the T77 so weird? Well, for starters, it had a rear-mounted air-cooled V8 engine. In the 1930s, this was like putting a rocket engine in a horse-drawn carriage. The engine was a 3.0-liter beast that cranked out 60 horsepower. Sure, that might not sound like much today, but back then, it was enough to make the T77 go up to 90 miles per hour. Considering the roads were about as safe as a tightrope over a shark tank, that was pretty darn fast. The T77's chassis was also a work of mad genius. It had a central tubular structure and independent suspension, which was the kind of stuff you'd find on a race car. This made the T77 ride smoother than a baby's bottom, almost like it was floating on a cloud. And let's not forget about the body, which was shaped like a teardrop and had a fin on the back. Yes, a fin, like it was some kind of land shark. The headlights were almost flush with the body, and the rear wheels were completely covered, making it look even more like a spaceship. Inside, the T77 was just as crazy. Some models had the steering wheel in the middle so passengers could sit on either side of the driver. The T77 was also decked out in fancy materials like leather and polished metal. Another thing that makes the T77 so special is how rare it is. Tatra only made 106 of these bad boys, so even when they were new, they were about as common as a unicorn. Today, the T77 is like a holy grail for car nuts, a rolling monument to what happens when designers and engineers are allowed to run wild with their imaginations. And let's not forget the impact the T77 had on the automotive world. Believe it or not, Ferdinand Porsche himself took a few cues from the T77 when he was designing the Volkswagen Beetle. So in a way, this crazy Czech car helped shape one of the most iconic vehicles of all time. The T77's focus on aerodynamics and off-the-wall engineering set the stage for decades of automotive innovation.
The 1991 Italdesign Aztek is a truly remarkable vehicle that showcases the pinnacle of automotive design and engineering. Created to celebrate Italdesign's 20th anniversary, this concept car made its grand debut at the 1988 Turin Motor Show, immediately turning heads with its futuristic and unconventional appearance. Italdesign, founded by the legendary designer Giorgetto Giugiaro, had a vision to create a car that would redefine the boundaries of what was possible in the automotive world. The Aztek was conceived as a limited production concept that would embody the future, where cutting-edge technology and daring design would seamlessly merge. Originally, the plan was to equip the Aztek with a powerful 3.6-liter V8 engine, but due to some setbacks, it ended up with a turbocharged 2.2-liter 5-cylinder engine from Audi instead. This engine could produce between 200 to 250 horsepower, depending on how it was tuned. One of the most eye-catching features of the Italdesign Aztek is its unique dual cockpit layout. The The driver and passenger are separated into their own distinct sections, which is a pretty wild idea for a car. To make this work, the occupants have to communicate with each other using an electronic system, adding to the car's futuristic vibe. The Aztek's body also incorporates some speedster elements, with partial visor sections that open up like gull-wing doors, making it look even more dramatic. The exterior of the Aztek is crafted from a mix of aluminum and carbon fiber, which helps keep the car lightweight while also giving it a super sleek and modern appearance. Under the hood, the Aztek features a mid-engine layout and a four-wheel drive system that's based on the one found in the Lancia Delta HF Integral. This setup ensures that the car has plenty of power and handles like a dream. Inside the Aztek, things are just as crazy and high-tech as the outside. The driver's cockpit comes with a satellite navigation system and a bunch of control panels, while the passenger gets their own instrument cluster that shows all sorts of information about the car. Both cockpits have advanced control interfaces that let you manage everything from the engine timing to the communication systems. Even though Ital Design had plans to make 50 Azteks, it's believed that only around 18 were ever actually built. The production was handled by Carrozzeria Savio, a coach builder based in Turin. Because so few were made and the design is so out there, the Aztek has become a highly sought-after collector's item. Now, what makes the Ital Design Aztek so weird and strange? Well, there are a few key things that really stand out. First, there's the whole dual cockpit layout, which is not something you see in most normal cars. It's definitely more of a concept car thing. Then there's the fact that the driver and passenger have to communicate electronically, even though they're sitting right next to each other. It's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. The Aztek's overall design is also pretty wild, with its bold lines, gull-wing visor doors, and the extensive use of aluminum and carbon fiber. It looks like a car from the future, or maybe even from another planet. And let's not forget about all the advanced technology packed into this thing. The satellite navigation system and all the control panels were way ahead of their time, with features that wouldn't become common in cars until much later. The Ital Design Aztek has even made its way into popular culture, appearing in movies like the 1990 science fiction horror flick Frankenstein Unbound. This has only added to its reputation as a car that looks like it belongs in a cyberpunk novel. Its rarity and unique design have made it a fascinating subject for car enthusiasts and collectors all over the world.